everyone, my name is Kat Savage and I'm a professional artist, clinical hypnotherapist and well-being expert working with those in the creative arts sector. In my line of work, I get to meet some amazing, colourful people, from actors to artists, people who live their lives by their own rules, fueled by passion and determination to bring their unique talents into the world. I wanted to discover what it took for people to leave the usual 9 to 5 and hop on a dream, to capture their bravest moments and share these meaningful conversations with you, so that together we can explore the ideas, emotions and moments that could potentially change our lives too. So let's keep talking, have some fun and enjoy the show. This week, to celebrate Pride Month on the Brave Moment podcast, we talked to creative artist Elani Evangelou. Predominantly a singer-songwriter who over the years has worked with everybody from the likes of Jon Gomm to Joss Stone, and most recently with Grace Lightman and Cestra's Choir Noir live at the Royal Albert Hall with the legendary Bring Me the Horizon. She is also a photographer, poet, and creator of the zine In Their Image, showcasing LGBTQIA plus artists in association with the Box Museum in Plymouth, UK. In this episode, Elani takes us through her creative process and talks candidly about her personal journey with her own mental health. It is with great pleasure that I introduce you to this incredibly versatile creative artist, Elani Evangelou. Elani Evangelou, welcome to the Brave Moment.
Thank you so much for having me.
How has your lockdown been and how are you feeling now that it's sort of coming to an end?
Oof. What is the short answer to that? Let's start with the latter. I am feeling good at the moment. Lockdown has been every myriad of emotion you could imagine, as I'm sure it has been for everybody. But yeah, I feel like 2021, though it has been quite challenging, I feel like I've settled into myself a little bit more, settled into that sweet lockdown life. I'm enjoying it. But I didn't, the first lockdown, once, I work in a restaurant. So once we'd kind of figured out how to operate as a takeaway, I didn't do all of the things that everybody else did, where it was, like 6 months at home, being furloughed. And I'm sure it was really tough for a lot of people, but I didn't do any of that because I was working. So I feel like this one, because we actually did close for a little while this year and I did get furloughed, I did the whole making pasta from scratch and reorganizing my wardrobe thing, but like a year after everybody else. So I'm loving it. I'm having a great time.
You're having that initial wave of awesomeness whilst all of us are kind of like,
party.
Oh God. So what do you think you've learned about yourself in this experience of time? Because we haven't really had anything like this before in terms of, just sort of reflecting on ourselves. What has this time given you in terms of what you've learned about yourself?
So much. This last year has given me so much, and there's been a lot of challenge, but I have really had to lean into those quiet moments, which is something that and I'm sure a lot of other people, never had the opportunity to do before. I'm a very busy person, always running around. I love to be social. I love to go and do a million things all in one day. And much to my detriment sometimes. But this time, not being able to do that, not being able to spend every waking moment at a friend's house, because that's very much what I would do with my time, that has given me a huge opportunity to sit back and go, okay, what's there when it's just me?
Give us an example into Elani's inner workings.
Oh my goodness. Wow. I mean, for me, it's that I realized that one of the reasons why I'm such a chronically busy person and why I have such a busy mind is because I'm really unfamiliar with that feeling of stillness. And you meet some people and they're really chilled out and they're really centered. And that's really, I find, such a beautiful, amazing thing. And I think that comes from having time alone. So for me, the inner workings of my mind over the past, sort of 365 days have been for the first time going, wow, it's just me and my thoughts. And they're going, have you thought about this thing that happened 20 years ago? Have you thought about that thing that you said to that person 6 months ago? And, that takes a lot, out of you. So there's been a lot of moments where I've gone, yeah, okay, I am going to think about that time at school that was really tough, or that time at school that was really amazing, and go, wow, how did that make me feel? And is that affecting how I'm behaving now?
That's really interesting to listen to, because I know that a lot of people through this experience have had that amplification of thought happen to them. So it is interesting to hear that you've gone right back into your childhood, into school time.
Yeah.
Talking of which, I'm going to take you back there now.
Great. Yeah. Play the harp.
Yeah, I'm doing it. What were you like as a child? And if you could go back to that space now, what advice would you give them about growing up?
Oh, goodness. I was, larger than life in character, but quite unhinged, I think. Kind of like now, actually. I'm not that different, to be honest. I was keen to please. I was keen to talk. My mum, my brilliant mother, around that time in my life was running a bar, and I was there a lot, surrounded by musicians, surrounded by awesome people. And I was just this little 10-year-old kid who just wanted to talk to everybody all the time. And I wanted to just spark up a conversation with whoever I possibly could. I would be a bit of a smart ass, but I think I like to think a bit of a lovable one. I'd be the kid at the party, I'd be there with my mum and my cousins and all the people there at this bar. And I'd be the kid that's going, give me a letter and I'll give you 10 countries that start with that letter. I'd be that kid. I'd be like, let me show you how smart I am. But yeah, I was all sorts of things, I think. I think the thing that's always kind of run through my life is that I just love to chat with people. I love to hear what they think about things, and I love telling people what I think about things. So that was me, I think. And if I was to go back and have a chat with myself at that age, I think one of the most important things I would probably say to myself is keep that confidence that you have. And if you start to feel insecure about it, which I definitely have done over the years, when that insecurity starts to come, just go, screw this. It doesn't matter that I talk all the time, and it doesn't matter that, I'm very out there, and I love to wear my heart on my sleeve. And I think that's what I would go back and say to my 10-year-old self. Keep that part of you. Don't be ashamed of it. Don't let secondary school make you hate yourself.
Do you know what? I was talking with another guest last week, a guy called Martin Pierce, who's an illustrator, and we were talking exactly about this point in our life when we suddenly become self-aware.
Yes.
And how that massively dashes your confidence, because you have people trying to put you into a box when you go to secondary school, whether that's, instead of saying, oh, wow, that's an amazing picture that you've drawn, or that's an amazing song that you've created, they go, oh, wow, that's an amazing picture. However, if you did it like this, then it would be better. And suddenly you have that self-doubt creep in, don't you?
Yes. And for me, I think for a lot of us, there's the self-doubt, which comes from the criticism of preteens, when you're in that age group. And there's also this huge need to find your tribe, isn't it? When you're in sort of secondary school, it's like, am I this kind of person or am I that kind of person? And this need to connect, I think, ends up becoming super divisive. That's what I think happens to a lot of us when we go from, say, that 9, 10 years old being whoever we want to be, to you get to secondary school and you go, oh, well, I can't be really interested in art and science, That's
so true.
Yeah.
And it's a weird one, isn't it? Because being someone like yourself who is a multi-creative, a creative polymath, if you will, I think that's something that the creative mindset definitely gives you, whilst someone who's sort of set on massive goal achievement or something will settle down into a subject and really put their heart and soul into one place. Whilst if you're a bit more on the creative side, you do want to try everything. You want to test those limits. You're curious about everything. And being told that you have to choose, I don't know, 5 subjects that interlink on a special timetable. So you can't do German and art because they don't sort of coincide on that timetable. It is really confusing, I think, for creative people in general. So talking of your teenage years, how on earth did you survive your teenage years? What was going through your mind, and how did that change you as a person?
Oh, God. I would love to know everyone that I've ever met. I would love to know everybody's answer to that question, because that is such a big one, isn't it? It's how did you survive your teenage years? And to be honest, the first thing that popped to mind as you asked me that question was when I started going to open mic nights, because I became extremely awkward and insecure as a teenager, as I'm sure most of us did. And I became really angry at the way school worked. It really didn't accommodate me. Being in suburban Plymouthian sort of school as someone like me, it just really didn't fit very well. And I think that if I hadn't had the opportunity to go to open mic nights and gigs as a young teenager, as a 14, 15-year-old, and see that there is an entire world outside of my secondary school, I think it would have taken me a lot longer to figure out that everything is going to be okay. It was kind of like the light at the end of the tunnel of being a teenager. It was like, okay, it's fine. I just have to get through this, these 6 hours a day at school, because after that, everyone's actually amazing.
I completely connect with that. As someone who went to Devonport High School for Girls.
Oh,
which
yes,
was,
DHS.
Oh my goodness. Anyway, I think I had a very similar experience to you, in that there was a space where, only having like a female space for a start, you didn't really have any opportunity to become curious or to look at your sexuality or to, even feel uncompetitive with other women. Yeah, it was really, really competitive, that environment. And as a result, there was a lot of bullying going on and a lot of bitchiness, dare I say it. And the teachers were doing the best they could. However, it's inevitable, isn't it? When you're in a same-sex school, one of the things you have to really look at is how you survive that passive-aggressive nature. And a bit like yourself, I would spend more of my learning time outside of school. Go to drama club, dance club, anything to get out of that space and be creative and be able to express myself how I wanted to express myself, as opposed to what I was being told to express. So with your creativity, especially at that time, what did it allow you to express that you couldn't express in any other way when you're at school?
I've always been super creative, super bolshy, super loud. You've met me. And that didn't really change too much when I was at school. I felt insecure about it and I felt frustrated and angry. But the difference for me was that I could be that person at open mic nights, at cafes, wherever I was, with people that were a little bit older than me, and them go, wow, Elani, let's talk about this. Yeah, do you think this way about this particular thing? Sure. Let's have a conversation. Let's have a cup of tea. Not like, oh, you're an angry feminist lesbian, which I also still do get in the outside world, of course, because again, have you met me? But but that's
I'd
more,
say focused lesbian.
Focused lesbian. That's me. That's what's on my dating profile.
So here you are in your teenage years getting a better education outside of school than inside of school.
Yeah.
What music were you into at that point? Because we have to say, you know, you've had nearly a decade's worth of experience in the music industry, and anyone that's heard your voice will understand just how incredible and how talented you are, not only as a musician, but also as a singer.
Thank you.
So what music was influencing you at that time, and what song in particular takes you back to those formative years, the good part of those formative years at least?
This is tough because there was a lot. I love all sorts of different types of music.
You are an eclectic for sure.
I love it. And, you know, I've got a very musical family. So I was raised with great music being played around me. You know, like a lot of sort of Lauryn Hill, Amy Winehouse, India Arie, Alicia Keys, loads of amazing, and lots of jazz as well. But I would be lying to myself if I wasn't honest about the fact that when I was a teenager, I was watching Glee. And I was listening to the soundtrack of Glee and absolutely loving it. I am not going to pretend that that's not what was happening. So
this is a safe and supportive space for Glee and anything else in that genre. So I'm going to give you a solitary clap for giving up the Glee information.
Thank you.
Well done. I stand in solidarity.
Thank you so much. This is a great supportive environment. I couldn't lie. I am not gonna skirt around that, because that is a very important part of who I was as a teenager. So for me, if I hear anything that was from Glee, I am instantly transported back. I started watching it again at the very start of the first lockdown. I was like, oh my God, this is trash, but I love it. I love it.
And the music is amazing. Like their arrangements, the 5-part harmonies, everything that's sort of playing into your life now.
I love it. I'm a sucker for it.
It's really accomplished.
Yeah, totally. And also, I'm not going to go on about Glee for too long, but one of the amazing things about something like Glee, is that for the most part, they were choosing incredible songs to arrange, like incredible songs from like all times. Like, you know, there was like ABBA, there was Saturday Night Fever, there was Fleetwood Mac, like all of these incredible artists. And of course, they were somewhat bastardizing them with the way that they were being performed at points. But for me and a lot of other people, young people, what 14-year-old is going to go out and buy Rumours on vinyl? Like, I did, but it was only because I heard it on Glee, you know? So that's the last I'm going to say about the G word.
Sorry, I'm just laughing so much because I'm so with you on that.
I'm so glad.
I secretly watch it now, but, you know, now it's out.
I'm so glad you understand. So that's my answer.
Do.
That's what I was listening to.
Brilliant. Okay, so you're listening to Glee. You're a diverse person in your teenage years.
Yes.
But what creative avenue feels like home to you? Because I know obviously we're talking about music and that is a big part of who you are, but you know, like you said to me before this interview, you like gardening, you like photography, you've just put it out to sea. What feels like home to you at the moment?
Oh, at the moment, so many things. I'm really enjoying this time to explore it, to be honest. For the last year, for most of 2020, I felt most at home taking photographs. That was a really, really beautiful, safe space for me last year, because I was living in Peveril at the time, walking around Central Park every day. I had a lovely little film camera that has now gone to heaven, unfortunately.
No!
She's died a death, but that's okay. That was my home last year, for sure. It was taking photos, having that quiet time, being mindful. And only because my camera has passed away have I stopped doing that. I haven't taken photos in ages now, and I really miss it. But that's definitely, other than, you know, the usual music stuff that I have usually spent most of my time doing, that's a really big part of home for me. And cooking, I love to cook.
Your whole family are big cooking
we love to eat.
Entrepreneurs, I would say.
Yeah. We all love to cook. All of us. I don't know if you know this, but my family is like, there are so many of us. Like, there are so many of us. I've got like, I don't know, 15 cousins or something. We're all women.
Wow.
All loud. And we all love to eat. We all love to cook. So that's always has been home for me, is like in the kitchen with lovely people, making delicious food together, eating delicious food together. That for me is one of the greatest joys.
I just want to be in that kitchen right now. I want to know.
Honey,
I want to know.
Come on over when you can, when it's legal.
It's so happening. What smell reminds you of home? When you talk about cooking, what is that smell that when it hits your nostrils, you think, yes?
Oh my goodness, rosemary.
Ooh, good choice.
For me, that's like childhood, young person. Like my mum is an incredible cook. She cooks all sorts of amazing things. And everybody loves their own, the family recipe, roast potato. So for me, like the smell of rosemary is just reminiscent of my mum's like most incredible roast dinners. She's so good at making them. That just transports me through time.
Oh, I'm with you right now. I'm with you on that rosemary smell train.
I'm hungry just thinking about
hungry.
it. I'm famished.
Hangry.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're talking a bit about family and being surrounded by this kick-ass group of incredible women. And I know that you've touched just briefly on your LGBTQ plus side of yourself. And I want to know, when did you come out? When did you know? How did your family react to that situation? And what advice would you give to other people that are making that decision?
Oh, I love talking to people about this, anyone of any sexuality, but I also feel very honoured if and when people ask me for advice on this, because it's wonderful to be able to share this. I'm really lucky. My family are amazing, super open-minded, super lovely people. So when I came out to my mum, it was, I'm sure, probably no surprise to her. But I remember we love each other. We get on very well, but we've never been, we don't like go out and go shopping and talk for hours about stuff. Like we're not like super chatty with each other. We just kind of have a lovely, quite chill relationship. So I was thinking like, how am I going to do this? Like I'm awkward. I'm 15. So I remember being sat on the sofa with my mum, and we were watching EastEnders, and it like the episode finished or something. I just went, Mum. And she went, yeah. And I went, can you mute EastEnders for a second? And she muted it. And I just went, I'm gay. And she went, awesome. And that was it. That was it. And she went, oh, who else have you told? And I was like, oh, this person, this one. She was like, great. That's wonderful. And that was kind of it. And then she was like, can I unmute EastEnders now? I was like, yeah. It was great. It was really good. I'm very lucky. It was very, very casual, which is all I needed at that point, and all anyone needs sometimes. So yeah, that was coming out to my mum. And then I kind of just gradually came out to other people in my family. I actually asked my mum to tell some family members, because I thought, I don't want to do this over and over again. It's terrifying. Coming out is really scary. Especially when you're a teenager. So yeah, I was really, really lucky in that. Everyone in my family is super awesome. Super, super awesome.
It's a funny situation, isn't it? Because, as I'm listening to you today as a modern woman, I suppose, it just mystifies me that we even have to have that conversation. Like you wouldn't go to another person and go, oh, by the way, I'm, heterosexual.
Exactly.
And then they congratulate you for it or whatever, or berate you for it. It's craziness to me that we have to have it, but it's also incredibly important to continue this conversation until it's normal.
Exactly. And it doesn't, like, I'm incredibly proud and like comfortable being like out. I love being gay. I love being part of the queer community. I would never take that back for anything. But I love this idea of everyone just being okay with being whatever, and it being maybe in 50 years, 100 years, who knows how long it's going to be, a few generations time, where everyone's kind of just assumed to be open-minded about everyone. This whole like hearts not parts thing, I think, is really what I would love for the future. But if I was to speak to a young person now, or someone who's still in the closet about coming out, I would just tell them that no matter what their family say, there are always people out there who will understand you. Just know there are so many allies out there. There are so many other queer people who understand where you're coming from. You just have to find them.
Yeah. And talking about finding them, that brings us very, very nicely onto your zine.
Oh, that was a good segue. That was really good. That was great.
Completely unplanned because it was totally from your mouth. Tell us about the zine. How did it come about and what compelled you to create it?
Well, the reason that I made it was because the Box Museum are running these micro commissions. And I saw that the most recent one they did, the brief was my story, and it was for LGBTQ plus people to tell their story of what it means to them to be queer in Plymouth. And I was thinking, okay, this is obviously really relevant to me. I really want to be a part of this. I don't know what to do, though. I don't know what to do. And I spent a few weeks really kind of torturing myself, thinking like, oh God, like, what am I going to do? I really struggle with writing songs. It takes me a very long time. I was like, could I write a song? Could I make a little video? Could I make a piece of visual art? And I was just like, oh, none of this is sitting right. None of this makes sense to me right now at this point, in like the bleak mid-January winter as well. I was like, oh God, I'm not inspired. I don't know what to do, but I really want to do this. And then I was watching this brilliant TV show called Mrs. America. I don't know if you've seen it.
No.
It's about, oh my God, it's amazing. It's about feminism in the 1970s. It's incredible. With Kate Blanchett and Sarah Paulson. It's awesome. It's really, really great. And I was watching that, and part of the storyline is Gloria Steinem is making this magazine called Ms. Magazine, and like they're talking about all the stuff they want to write about, and it's all about feminism, intersectional feminism. And I was like, wow, like that's amazing. There's this publication that's now been going on for like 50 years about feminism, and it's by women and it's for women and it's inspiring and it's inclusive. I was like, wow, like that's so cool. I'd love to be a part of something like that. And then that evening I was lying in bed and I was like, oh my God, I need to make a zine. I need to make a zine about queer people. And it just kind of came to me and I thought, okay, that's what I'm going to do. Never done it before. I must be able to figure it out. And it just felt right. It felt really, really right. And it was really fun because I'm not experienced in anything like that, like making a zine. So I tried not to have too many expectations of myself because I wasn't comparing it to anything else. I was just like, let's just make this. Let's just see what happens.
It's really interesting that you should talk about the Zine In and not having expectations on yourself. Talking of films and stuff like that, if you're a young person, there's a wonderful film that's just come out called Moxie, which is about teenage girls creating a magazine on the back of, in America especially, there's this sort of like historical thing that happens at schools where the guys will make a list and they'll put things like best boobs, best eyes, that kind of thing on this list, and then name people in their school. And it was a film that came about from this sort of historical list that happens in schools in America. And this girl in this particular film, she makes a zine, much like yourself. And the thing that happens from that, the viral thing that happens from that, was really, really interesting. And it just so happened that I'd watched this film and then your zine came out and I was like, yes, I'm so excited about this, because that's the beauty and the history of a zine, isn't it? It's to make a point. It doesn't have to be, you know, like a big magazine that's on the bookshelves. It's something that's passed from hand to hand, almost a secret, if you will. that opens people's eyes. And that's exactly what your wonderful zine is doing. And it's so colourful and it's so fun and it's so creatively put together. I can't wait for the next one that you produce.
Thank you.
What are you inviting the audience to look at through this window of your telling? And what are you hoping to show them?
Well, for me, creating this zine was an opportunity for me to let go of any expectation of myself by trying to make something that I've never made before. So it was really about the creative process for me. And also what I really was excited and am excited about with making this zine is the opportunity to connect with people in the queer community who I don't know, I haven't met them before, asking them questions about their experience of it, and just feeling like these connections are being made, because I've been out as a lesbian for, nearly 10 years now. And I've got some amazing friends, and I do have some brilliant queer friends, but not that many. And I don't feel super connected to like some huge queer community here in Plymouth. And I know that they are here. I know we're here. I know there are queer people everywhere. But for some reason, whether that's my own doing or Plymouth not necessarily having the right places, I don't know how to connect with that community. So I was thinking, okay, well, for my own personal benefit, I want to create something where I get to meet new people and we get to meet each other, and maybe it will grow somewhat over the next few publications when I continue making it, so that I can just make some new friends, really. I just want to meet more people that share similar experiences to me.
And it's beautifully organic, which is what I love about it. It's something that's tactile and tangible, as opposed to being sort of on social media or creating a community on social media. It's a different feeling when you've got something in your hands and you're reading about someone's personal experience, which you can do in your particular zine.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of it. And even from my perspective, I'm learning so much about the community here in Plymouth as well. And, even through the podcast and all the rest of it, and having people like yourself talking openly and honestly, and helping to spread that word is brilliant. And I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. Oh my God.
Thank you.
So when this finishes, because I know that it was a commission from the box in Plymouth, which if you are local to the southwest of the UK and you are able to travel again, please go and check it out. It's a wonderful space, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you think you'll carry this zine on after that commission has ended? Is it never ending for you? Where do you see it going?
Well, I would love to just continue making it for as long as I can. That is the hope. That is the dream. The only roadblock I have at the moment is just having the time and the money to create it, because obviously I was commissioned by the box, which meant I could take some time off work. It took me a fair amount of time to do it because I've never done anything like it before. So I managed to take a bit of time off work, and, the commission helped to make the prints of it. I paid the brilliant Laura Hull, who did all the illustrations of the people. Like, I got to commission her because I had this money from the box to do it. So really what I'm just trying to do now is sell a few copies of the zine. I'm going to be distributing it around like cafes in Plymouth, and just get a little bit of extra funds together, just so that I can make the next one. I'm really not interested in making any money from it. I just don't want to lose any money in making it, because I'm a musician, and musicians historically don't make money. So I would love to continue doing it. And I'm currently planning the next one. I'm hoping to get at least a couple out every year. But I don't want to put too much pressure on it, because I always read these things about this generation, like our generation of people, is obsessed with the side hustle and the, it's like, oh, I love knitting. And it's like, I'm going to create a business. It's like, that's amazing. I do that all the time with everything. I'm like, oh, I love making hummus. I'm going to make a shop, so Greek. So I'm trying now to sort of manage my expectations of myself and think, okay, I've made this zine. I'm really proud of it. I'm just gonna like distribute a few across town, and I'm just going to make the next one in my own time, because I, as I mentioned earlier, am chronically busy. I'm like always like, how much is on my to-do list today? What can I get done today? So if I put the zine on that list, it will become something that I get stressed out about. So I'm trying really hard to just be like chilled about it and make it when I want to, and not turn it into a side hustle.
Make it a passion project as opposed to a side
I love passion
hustle.
projects. I love them.
I do too.
Yeah.
So talking about your music, you did briefly talk about it, and I know I've kind of gone off on a tangent about your zine. I want to talk a little bit about your music, because you are such an incredible musician and you're involved in quite a few projects, as you rightly say. Talk to us a little bit about your time with Noir. Talk to us a little bit about your songwriting, and where do you see yourself heading musically when you can move and travel again and start gigging again?
I love this question because before, maybe a few years ago when I was a little bit younger, people would go, tell us about your involvement in X, Y, and Z, and tell us about what your goals are for your music. And I would always go, I'm going to write an album next year and I'm going to go on tour and it's going to be amazing. And it's like, obviously that's awesome, like if you can do that. But I've been saying that for years. It's never happened. So there is a reason, and it's because maybe that's actually not the path that I need to go down right now. And so I'm really glad you asked me that, because I am really enjoying taking that pressure off myself. And I love to think of myself as a songwriter from time to time, but I'm definitely not a career songwriter. And that's been something that I've discovered over lockdown, because I'd always used to say, as I'm sure everybody else did, oh, if I only just had some time, I would write an album and it would be amazing. And that's the reason why I can't write any songs, because I'm too busy. And then I had all this free time, and I've written a little bit, but I haven't written an album. I haven't gone on tour. And like, obviously it's not time that's the common denominator for me. It's that is not what I need to be putting pressure on myself to do. So I'm really enjoying writing songs for at my own very, very, very slow pace. But yeah, I think in terms of like what I'm looking for myself in music for the next few years or something, I just want to keep on learning as much as I can from everybody else around me, from other women in music, from other queer people in music. And I really enjoy we've got this little home studio where I live at the moment. And I really enjoy putting time into that and like learning a little bit about recording from home and learning about doing sessions for other people, because that's really where my passion lies a lot of the time, is being hired as a musician to sing and perform for other people. I really love that. So that's kind of what I'm putting my energy into at the moment.
It's really interesting to see how creatives have responded to that space. And I really feel you with you set yourself these big goals. And I did exactly that at the beginning of lockdown. I was like, right, I'm going to write a book and I'm going to do this and I'm going to blah, blah, blah. And, luckily I stuck to the goal of starting the podcast, which I'm really pleased about, because it means that I get to talk to people like yourself and Alex and Cestra. And the one thing that we were talking about, especially with Alex Hart, is she said, I've had to learn how to use my equipment. I've had to learn how to use Logic. I've had to learn all of these different aspects of producing. Yes. And, she produced a covers album called Under the Covers. Again, not songwriting in particular, but just exploring and being curious about her ability to sing a certain song in a way that she wanted to. And I think, you're such a great chameleon in that respect. In fact, in the fact that your voice is versatile, you can blend in beautifully with harmony, such as with Noir. But also you do have that ability to play guitar and to songwrite for yourself. So I'm really pleased to hear that the honesty and the authenticity in just saying, you know what, I've had the space, it's not happening, I'm going to take that pressure off. And that's a really big thing for any creative to learn, I think, because we do put that pressure on ourselves. And being people of creativity, you have that sort of perfectionist inside you, that pusher, that motivator that's going, right, okay, because because you're creative and you can do these things, you have to do them really well and you have to do them all the time.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to live with that voice, isn't it?
It's so hard. It's so hard to balance, though. That's the thing. It's a tough balance between not letting that voice make you feel like shit and also letting a tiny bit of that voice come in every now and then to kind of go, come on, get in the studio, do something, like you've got to have a little bit of that voice to give you the little fire under your ass that you need, but not too much, I think. And that is something that I definitely am trying to settle into, is taking that pressure off and going, do you know what? I'm not a natural born, like, super prolific songwriter. I like to write in my own time, but what I love to do is I'm so grateful to have this little studio space here at home and like learning a little bit about how to record from home for other people or for myself, and just like having a bit of fun, really, just having a bit of fun with it, instead of going, I'm going to write an album and it's going to be played on 6 Music, which obviously is the dream, but it's not just going to happen, It's not just going to happen like immediately.
Exactly. And I think that, again, sort of a common misconception with creativity is we set ourselves up for these massive goals, but the only way that we can really achieve them is by taking sort of micro jumps towards that massive goal, because that's just a collection of these sort of mini goals that we take along the way.
Yes.
So I'm so curious about your time in your studio space. Who have been some of your sort of big inspirations, be it locally or in general, especially in the female space of music?
Yes, that's a great question. And there are so many amazing inspirational women in Plymouth, I think, and in the Southwest for sure. Alex Hart is such an inspiration, because she is the kind of person who will just go, I want to do this, and she will just do it. And that is amazing. Like with her album Under the Covers, like that is so impressive that she just went, you know what? I'm just going to do this all myself. And I think that's really, really beautiful. And I would have to mention Kat Marsh as well, Cestra. She is like such an inspiration to me. And again, a very accomplished songwriter, performer, producer. She has got skills, like, for sure. And Grace, who I live with, Grace
Lightman.
Yeah.
Oh, she has to come on the show, by the way.
I'm
You have
sure
to give her a little nudge.
She would love that. Speaking as her PA. Yes, she is incredible, and she is very brave. She's brilliant. And so we moved into this house with another friend of ours in October last year, and that has been really brilliantly instrumental in the progression of my understanding of music and production. I don't really have much of an understanding of production, but I'm getting there. And between me and Grace, we've kind of built this really small little studio here in our house, and we've got the computer and we've got Logic, we've got a little tiny setup, and that has been really great, because we're just 2 women, like unqualified, but with a little bit of experience, just trying to figure out how to do this. I'm
like, I've got my hand in the air going, yeah!
Yes. We are figuring it out slowly but surely. That's definitely been a huge source of inspiration, is just like my life here, just trying to learn all the time without being able, because we're in lockdown. It's not like we can just go, oh, let's just get an engineer in, or let's just go to the studio. It's like, no, we have to do this here at home. Like, we have to. And that's been really, really great. I wouldn't forgive myself if I couldn't say Laura Marling as a huge inspiration to me, because she is like a huge, huge inspiration as a musician, as a songwriter. And she has an incredible podcast called Reversal of the Muse, which is all about gender equality in the music industry. It's amazing.
We'll make sure that we drop a link to that particular podcast in the show notes for this one, for anyone that wants to check that out, because I think that's such an important conversation. And again, talking about Cestra, we were talking about that gender equality space within the music industry. And I think every person that identifies as female has a different take on that space. I mean, what is your experience personally in that space?
I find that there is an extreme inequality within the music industry, especially within my experience of the session and the studio industry, which is really where I sit more so than as like a songwriter or someone who I'm not really much of a touring musician, but I love to be in the studio. And it is very male dominated. It's very, very male dominated industry. And I think it is changing slowly. I was actually talking with Kat Marsh about this a few days ago, and we kind of talked for hours and hours about how we can change it, how we can change the world. And I think it is happening slowly. You're seeing more sessions that are 50-50 and more festival lineups that are 50-50. But I would definitely say that there is still a huge inequality within the music industry for women, non-binary people, queer people. Like there is, in terms of gender and sexuality, like there is definitely a huge bias. It is the job of every single one of us to do something about it. But I think that people want that.
The thing that I love actually about lockdown is because we've all had that space, we're starting to look at the way that we communicate. We're starting to look at these issues a little bit more closely, and they have been amplified, which has been brilliant, you know, regardless of the horror that COVID has put upon us as a country. We are actually having those conversations probably for the first time for many, many people.
Yeah.
So talking about misconceptions and things like that, what is one common misconception about you?
I feel like if there was going to be a misconception about me from maybe friends or people that I know, acquaintances, maybe it's that I'm really confident. And I'm not that confident all the time. Like there are certain things that I feel very strongly about and that I'm very confident about when I'm speaking to people about something I truly believe in, especially when it comes to what we were just talking about, you know, politics and equality and stuff. Like I'm very confident about that because I truly believe that I know what I'm saying to some extent. But I think that because I'm so loud and I'm such a, you know, I talk so much and I'm such a bolshy extra person.
I'm so extra.
I'm super extra. I'm so extra. And I'm so, like, my heart is on my sleeve and I'm just so emotional with everybody. Like, I love you so much. You're so amazing. That I think people think that perhaps they think that I'm really confident and that I love to be the center of attention. And actually, I don't feel that way. Like, most of the time, I actually feel quite insecure. You know, I'll go away from a social situation and I know that I end up a lot of the time, I will dominate that conversation or I will be super loud, that I'll come away from it thinking like, oh God, like, I shouldn't have said any of that. Like, that was so stupid. So maybe that's a common misconception, perhaps.
It's a funny one because every single creative person that I've spoken to has that kind of extrovert, introvert personality. It's almost as if that performer, that ego that we all have takes over in the creative space or the social space. It's annoying and also wonderful, isn't it? Because it does mean that you can get the work done, but equally that you become self-deprecating about it afterwards.
Totally, and it's exhausting as well. It's exhausting, for sure. For sure.
So talking about that performer, that exhibitionist in you, what have been some of your proudest moments creatively? You know, what do you feel are your biggest accomplishments?
Oh, again, amazing question. Because I think if you'd asked me that a few years ago, I would have listed off all of my best CV things. Like, this is a big performance that I did. That is and that's great as well. That's awesome. Very proud of all of my, you know, big shows and stuff. For me, like, I think some of the proudest creative moments that I've had have been when I've felt completely free. So like in Choir Noir, for example, in the before times, when we would rehearse, we used to go to Middle Farm Studios in Newton Abbot, and I'm sure we will again one day. And there's, you know, sometimes there's 30 of us, 40 of us in a room together, and we're singing this arrangement together. We're singing this a track together with everyone from baritone to soprano, and it's so loud and it's so beautiful. And a lot of the time when we have those big rehearsals, we'll stand in a circle and sing it together, and you look around and there's like definitely a few of us with like a few tears in the eyes. That is, for me, that's a real moment of pride, I think, within my creativity, is being in that situation with, you know, a couple of dozen other humans and going, wow, like, we're creating this sound, like, all with our voices as well. And that, for me, that fills me with pride.
I love that answer, and it's, again, I'm sort of relating it back to my own experiences, or trying to visualize that experience myself. And recently I was coaching this wonderful woman called Kate Ireland, who works for the RNLI, and we're doing this session at the moment on finding sort of your soul songs and your inner voice, and how you can use that inner voice to gain confidence in mentoring and sort of being out there in front of people, public speaking. And I was talking to her about what makes her soul sing, what makes her well, what makes her get to that point that you're talking about, where you're in a room full of people and you feel so connected and so overwhelmed with an emotion. You know, what does that for her? And she brought along to this session this piece of opera music. And to be fair, you know, opera is an acquired taste. And, you know, it's something that, you know, personally, I probably wouldn't listen to in my own time, but she brought this piece to me, and it came from a film called Beautiful Boy, which is a brilliant film. If you want to check it out, I think it's on Netflix or Prime. Other streaming services are available, but it's this moving, slow singing operatic voice behind this particular song, and it's almost like a woman crying or releasing something so big that it's almost taken out of her body. And that's the only way I could describe it. And it was the first time in my life that I thought, oh my goodness, you know, I'm being moved by operatic voice. Yes. And she was crying on her end of the computer, I was crying on my end of the computer, and I was just absolutely in this element of pride for her for finding such a thing, but also that connection, which that's the one thing from lockdown, isn't it? Just having that connection musically with other people, with other voices, and having that move through you.
Yes, I love that. I love that. And I know exactly what you're describing. That is how I feel when I'm listening to someone express themselves, often through their voice, through their singing. It could be any instrument really, but I know exactly what you mean. When you're hearing somebody sing and it comes out and it is just pure emotion, pure human feeling, that is, nothing compares to that, I think.
What do you define as success? On the back of that feeling of accomplishment and pride when you're around other people and you're creating that sound, what is it that you define as personal success?
For me, success is defined as doing what I want to do to the best of my ability, and not being too hard on myself for it.
It's a very good, succinct answer. I like it.
Thank you. It's a loaded question.
It is a loaded question, isn't it? And talking about it being a bit of a loaded question, I want to talk to you a little bit about mental health, because I know that you've had a big journey, especially recently with your mental health, your identity, all of those kind of things. And I just want to know what that journey is about. What have you discovered about yourself? What have you had to admit to yourself? And how do you feel accomplished or successful in that arena?
Oh, that's a wonderful question. I feel very strongly about this, and especially after a whole year now of the pandemic, because I feel like there's been a lot of opportunities for success, growth, personal development, learning for all of us across all different parts of our lives. But for me, like the biggest, by a country mile, but the biggest thing that I've gotten out of the last year is emotional development. And that has come from hardship, and that's come from lockdown. And, you know, the very first one a year ago, I was living with my mum at the time. which is brilliant, but I like to be social with my friends. You know, I'm very, very social. So the first couple of months, I felt really alone, and I was really struggling with my emotions at the time. And I remember speaking on the phone to a friend and going, I feel really rubbish. Like I really don't feel like I'm coping very well at all. And she turned to me and she said, Elani, you've been talking about going to a therapist for almost a year now. I think that it's time that you did that. I think it's time. And I went, you know what? Yeah, you're right. I'm ready, because I'd been talking to her for many months saying, I know I need to see a therapist, but I'm just not ready to be vulnerable. I was working full time as a chef and trying to be a musician at the same time, being my chronically busy self. And I was like, I can't see a therapist, because if I see a therapist, then I'll start feeling all the feelings that I'm feeling. And if I do that, there's no way I'm showing up to work, you know? And that was it. That is how I felt. And then finally it was like lockdown gave me this opportunity, because I wasn't going to work for the first maybe 2 or 3 months. I thought, okay, well, if I'm going to have a nervous breakdown, this is the time. This is the time to do it.
I'm going to pencil it into my diary.
Literally,
today.
yeah. This is me, such a control freak, so busy. I'm like, right, okay, I've got 90 days to have this breakdown. And the next day I went online and I found a therapist that actually had been recommended to me by somebody else. And I booked in my first session with her. That was almost a year ago now. And I've been seeing her every 2 weeks, basically on and off for the last year. And it has been such a huge journey, one of the biggest emotional journeys I've ever been on. It's so hard, but it's so necessary, of just going into that place of, what is your mind trying to tell you? When you're frustrated about the fridge not being organised, or when you're frustrated about this thing happening, what are you really actually upset about? And that has been a huge journey for me.
What do you think has been the biggest thing you've learned about yourself on that journey?
I think one of the biggest things that I've learned about myself in that aspect is that I haven't ever given myself permission to treat my emotions as valid. And I'm on that journey now, and I'm trying to recognize that. But up until very recently, I'll talk for hours about anything, but it was always my emotions that came last.
I from a therapeutic point of view, one of the things that we learn is the Socrates phrase, healer, heal thyself. And it's very, very easy, especially if you're a social person, to be able to listen to other people's problems, to really help them out. And you'll go out of your way almost to help other people out, or in your situation, be chronically busy. And it's almost a deflection, isn't it, of the stuff that you need to work on yourself.
Totally.
And I would recommend to anybody to take that time, even if it's just a small step at a time, to just take an aspect and look at it and think, why? And obviously, a bit like yourself, put that space in for a therapist. It's not as scary as you think, is it?
No,
going into that therapy space.
It's not. And I gave myself that 90 days to have a nervous breakdown. And guess what? I didn't have a nervous breakdown. I didn't. And it was fine.
You survived.
I survived. Of course I survived. And I still managed to grow my Swiss chard plants. And I really, really thought, I really genuinely, truly believed that if I allowed myself to be emotional for 5 minutes in that therapy session, that it would make me completely fall apart. And it didn't at all. It's been a really gradual process, because that's why you go and see a professional therapist, isn't it? It's because
Precisely.
they have spent years training in order to allow you to let your emotions out in a safe way. They're not going to let you do that. They're not going to let you fall apart so that you can't function, So I would say that to anybody who is saying what I was saying a year ago: go to therapy.
That's absolutely true. Just do it. That's Nike that
Just
situation. And equally, you have survived that long because you're protecting yourself from something, and because you've got those massively amazing protective techniques within you. Even within the therapy space, you're going to have those protective mechanisms at play, so you won't fall apart. That is, that's such a massive myth, and I'm really glad that you've shouted that out today in this interview.
Yes, because if I could have told myself that many years ago, it would have saved me a lot of trouble. So yeah, for anybody who's listening to this who's thinking I could not possibly go to therapy, you can.
And it's a normal thing these days. It's almost a fashion statement, isn't it? Yeah. I'm in therapy.
Yeah, totally.
This podcast is obviously called the Brave Moment Podcast, and I would really love to hear what you consider to be your bravest moment, be that physically, spiritually, or mentally, and how has it allowed you to evolve as a person?
Okay, so this might be predictable because of what we just talked about. But to be completely honest with you, the bravest thing that I've ever done is going to therapy. I know that we've just talked about that. But for me, the bravest thing that I could have done is look at my emotions in the mirror and go, this is horrible. This is really hard, but you are going to survive. You are going to survive it. You just have to allow it to happen. And I know that there are a million brave things that we can all do, but for me, the hardest thing that I have ever had to do is survive the last year of my life.
I think that's a mic drop moment, so I'm not going to impeach any more information into that. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Is there anything, looking back, other than starting therapy a bit sooner, do you have any regrets? Is there anything you do differently?
The only small things that I do regret are being silent at times. And I've seen people in my life go through things. When I was younger, when I was a teenager, watching friends go through grief and go through really tough things and not knowing what to say to them, so not saying anything. The only thing that I would change about my life is going to those friends who have gone through something and saying, I'm really sorry and I'm here for you. Instead of shying away because I didn't want to say the wrong thing, I actually think even if I had said the wrong thing, if I'd been honest and compassionate, maybe I could have provided a little bit of help, Yeah, that's the only regret.
I think we can all learn from what you've just said and hopefully, take that forward into our years to come. And I know that you're really making strides within yourself to be there and to show up and be present in that space.
Yeah.
So before we do your quick fire question round, Elani Evangelou, what advice would you give to other people in the queer community that are creative? What advice would you give them to get their work out there and be seen?
I would advise that they look for as many queer people as they can possibly find and talk to them and then tell me about them because I'm looking for them too.
There you go, everyone. You've heard it. It's spoken. Now get on and do it.
Yeah.
All right, Elani, are you ready for your quick fire question round?
Oh my God. Yeah, I think so. All
right. Deep breath. Piece of music you must sing along to.
Sir Duke, Stevie Wonder.
Good choice. Favourite album and why?
Frank, Amy Winehouse.
Book that changed you.
Just Kids by Patti Smith.
Oh, good choice again. Oh my God. What makes you cry?
Old people.
Oh my goodness. That's literally just made my heart crack open.
I'm sorry.
Let's move on from that very quickly. What makes you laugh?
Silliness and butts.
What makes you cringe?
Ooh, people who talk too much, because I do that.
Oh, same. That's why you need a podcast for yourself, lady.
I know.
Film that impacted your life.
Ooh, that's tough. That's a tough one. Soul. I just watched it. Have you seen it?
Yeah, we were just talking about that with Martin Pearce. Oh my goodness. I love that film so much.
I think it's the best film I've ever seen.
It's so cool, isn't it? Once you get past sort of the abstract nature of some
I
of
loved it.
I loved it too, but I can imagine like some other people going, what on earth is going on here? But stick with it all the way to the end. You will be happily surprised.
Yeah.
Something that you often think about.
Ooh. Death. Sorry if that's a bit dark, but I think about it all the time.
Do you know what? I'm so with you. So I've got this thing, and it's a weird thing that I've started doing on the back of that question. I know we're sort of pausing your quick fire question round, but I have to butt in just as you would in a good conversation. I always think about that word legacy, and I think about, you know, what we're leaving behind, what can contribute to the humanity space, and then I've started to do weird things. So I'm trying to keep a journal where I imagine that I'm going to be honest with myself, but other people will read it in 100 years' time. So I'm trying to make it as sort of like formal as possible and informal as possible so that people can learn from it. But equally, I've started doing this thing. It's really weird, but I wish that everyone would do it. So when I go into a charity shop and I purchase a book that has a dedication to someone inside, and it could be something like to Peter on your 14th birthday, and then the date something like, 1798 or something like that.
I want to go to that charity shop.
Right? But I always wonder about those people. So in the thought of death, in the thought of not being on the planet anymore, I've started writing, and it might seem a bit egotistical actually, but I've started writing my name, the date, where I'm reading that book, and a little bit about myself in that book.
I love
so that when people find that book in the future, they'll go, oh, who is this Cat Savage? Oh, look, she's written a bit about who she is. That's brilliant. And they can do their own research on
I love that. It's like a time capsule. It's like a tiny little time capsule. I fully support that.
Okay, so coming back to you, thing you tell yourself to feel confident.
Your emotions are valid.
God, that should be on a tattoo list somewhere, shouldn't it? Epic fail.
Oh God. Okay, I'll try and do the short version of this story. I quit university very, very early on, and on my final week of uni, we did a live performance every week. I studied music, and on my final week of uni, I demanded that on my performance, I took the lead role. We had like 2 guitarists, a bassist, a drummer, and a singer, and we get a song to perform every week. And I was like, right, I'm leaving. I'm only one of 4 women on this guitar class. Like, I'm gonna represent. I'm a feminist. I'm doing the lead guitar for Highway to Hell by AC/DC. I'm gonna fucking slay this. And I got up there and we did it, and it got up to the guitar solo moment, and I hit the note and I was playing it in the wrong key.
No!
It was horrible.
And you can't stop, can you? When you started, you can't stop.
It was awful. It was awful. I'll never forget it.
Oh, let's move swiftly on from that cringing
please.
memory. Your favourite accomplishment?
Ooh, everything that I've ever done with Choir Noir.
Brilliant. Thing you love about humanity?
Oh, our capacity to love.
And be aware of it, I think.
Yeah. And the fact that we kiss.
Oh,
Isn't that sweet? Isn't that weird and sweet that we do that?
I know, it's so cute.
Yeah.
Thing you would change about humanity?
Oh, sexism.
Oh, so with you. Pet peeve?
Sexism. And overcooked pasta.
No slimy, soggy pasta in this residence. If you were a ghost, who would you haunt?
Ooh, Donald Trump.
I'm just imagining that. I'm such a visual person that I can literally see you sort of creeping up to him in a cartoon style.
I would haunt him so much.
I think we should all just come back and haunt that man.
I will.
If there was a zombie apocalypse, what would you use as a weapon and where would you hide?
Oh, that's good. Okay, for a weapon, I would use, I think it's called a Morning Star. And it's, it's like a
throwing star.
No, it's like, that would be amazing. It's like a big metal ball with spikes on it, attached to a chain, attached to a stick, so you're like, kind of like whipping it around at zombies.
Oh,
so you can hit them from a distance.
Where would you hide?
I would probably hide. Oh, what about Drake's Island?
That would be immense, wouldn't it?
Because they can't swim, so.
That's true. Okay, I'm going to join you on Drake's Island.
Yeah.
I probably won't swing a Morning Star because I'm not that cool. But
I
with
got
you
it, don't worry.
That's cool. I'm glad to know. If you were to be reincarnated, what 3 memories would you like to take from this life?
Ooh. Swimming in the sea. Like just any time I've ever swum in the sea. The feeling of stepping off of a plane in a hot country.
Oh, I love that. I'm there already.
Yeah. Because what if you were reincarnated, like not as a human? You would want those like weird, like human. I'm imagining I'm going to be a bug or a cat or something. Want those feelings, you know? So like the cold water hitting your skin, the hot air hitting your skin, and seeing Laura Marling play in London at a tiny little 200 capacity venue. That's one of my favourite memories ever.
Oh, I love those memories. I'm going to encapsulate them in my mind and explore them later myself.
Please do.
You can save one object from your house before it's demolished. What do you save?
Whoa, whatever guitar is closest to me. There's so many.
And finally, what was the last text you received?
Oh my God. Was it maybe from you saying, saying, do you know how to use this thing?
I think it might just be Elani Evangelou. You have survived your quickfire question round. You get the solitary clap. Yay! Thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's been such a pleasure to speak to you and just to hear your awesome voice once more. Just a final word for the world right now. If you could speak to the world directly in this moment, what would you say?
Keep loving each other.
Another great tattoo, by the way,
yes.
for the other wrist. Thank you so much. If people want to follow you or check out the zine or any of your work, where can they find you on social media?
You can find me on Instagram at Infant Primate. That is where I do all of my best work.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kat. Thank you.
If you live in the city of Plymouth, you will know the name Elani Evangelou. Her voice is a complete original, much like that of Amy Winehouse or Aretha Franklin. And like her voice, Elani in herself is unique, open, brutally honest, and like she says in this interview, will happily talk to anyone about anything. She is part of the Art Nouveau in her ocean city, and her reputation precedes her. You know that Elani will give you everything she can in the moments that she has with you, be that musically, artistically, or creatively. She makes an impact just by entering a room. Dissatisfied with the lack of creative representation for the LGBTQIA+ community in Plymouth, she took it upon herself to create space for it within her own capacity and artistic sphere. Her philosophy being that everyone has a voice that should be heard, and that instantly gives you the power to use it. Her one regret in life being the times that she has kept quiet when someone or something has happened where keeping quiet was possibly the wrong thing to do. As Elani demonstrates, when you have a powerful voice, it can sometimes be hard to wield, especially in social situations where it might have a mind of its own. But because of its power, it can be utilised and channeled to be a leading voice for those that, for whatever reason, have been overlooked, underrepresented, or haven't been heard at all. And this is what Elani is learning as she creates now, that having such a voice can bring much needed attention to other voices, and as a consequence, she is adding to the rich fabric of her own urban family, making connections and new friends through the art that she facilitates and that they create together as a result. Talking of which, Elani lives to combine, collaborate, and lend her musical talent to others on the regular. She knows that threading her skills with other people's creates something bigger than herself, something bigger than one body can produce, and she understands the immense value in that for her, she gets to feel her voice in action, hearing those huge harmonies and resonance that it creates for all. That collaboration in voice has the power to physically move people to tears. That is sacred musical space for Elani and gives her great purpose in her music. From a therapeutic point of view, hearing Elani speak openly about her journey with her mental health is literally music to my ears. To know that we now live in an age where we feel we can talk about the things that we would in another time have left unmentioned for fear of the conversation or judgment it might elicit is relieving, to say the least. Each and every one of us, therapists included, experience the intrusive thought process. It's one of the wonders of having self-awareness, of claiming our position in the intelligent life form category, and unfortunately, we don't come with a manual. But talking about our experiences together is helping us to create something similar. We can now recognize cognitive patterns and behaviors that we all share, and those that are neurodivergent. We now have systems in place such as neurolinguistic programming, cognitive behavioral therapy, EMDR, and hypnotherapy that can help to reorganize and rebuild our thought processes. And we now know the true impact of stress and emotional trauma on the body, as well as the mind. And all because we decided to talk about it and find solutions that, as it turns out, have a common outcome. Each and every time we are brave enough to open up about how we feel, we help someone else. There is still an apprehension that precedes therapy, but as Elani says, once you open the door and walk in, you realize very quickly that you don't fall to pieces. Speaking as a therapist, this is always the first conversation I have with a client. No, we don't have an ability to control or change your thoughts or who you are. Only you have that ability. All we have are the tools to help you do that. And when you're ready, we will very happily teach you how to use them, and we'll always be there to catch you if you fall. Talking is the most important tool we have, and your voice, no matter how big or small you may feel it is still a voice nonetheless. And every time you use it, you add to the space, history, and moment that you find yourself in. It is your most precious gift. It is the unique expression of your experiences, of your world, and it would be a shame for us all if we could not hear it. The wonder of art is such that our voices can be heard in colour, pen, camera, dance, and song, so that even on the days when we feel the power is in other people's hands, we can still be present and provoke conversation anyway. And that, my friends, is a gift that makes us truly a unique presence on this earth. As Austin Kleon once said, the only way to find your voice is to use it. Next week, in the final episode of Season 3, we speak to the incredibly talented Alex Hart about life on the road and under the covers. And if you wish to connect with Elani, she will be performing with Grace Lightman at the Cosmic Kitchen in Plymouth City on June the 25th and hosting a queer art fair at Ocean Studios in the Royal William Yard on August the 21st. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to the show. If you have a spare moment now, please like, subscribe, and tell me your thoughts in a review on Apple Podcasts, which will really help other people like yourself to find the show. Of course, you can also share the show with your friends by following us at the Brave Moment Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, or on Twitter at Moment Brave, or just follow the Linktree on all of our social media platforms. It's been so wonderful to have you all here with me again. Please get in touch with your own stories, and remember, your brave moment starts now.